and use their favorite songs. Like I used Smoke on the Water for science one year.
Yeah.
And they remembered it. And Beastie Boys, like Intergalactic for the planets, and they remember it. Welcome to the virtual compound. We're tackling a brand new topic today, homeschooling. We have all at some point homeschooled, are homeschooling, or our kids have been in public school. We have experience with all the realms except for probably private school. Good morning. It is Friday morning at 6 a.m. in Southern California.
It is 9 o'clock here in a seasonably warm Maryland.
It is.
It was 80 degrees yesterday and I wore shorts. Shut it.
Okay, fair.
Fine. I will consent that that's warm. It is 11 o'clock p.m. here in Okinawa, and it's freezing.
What is your freezing?
It is actually cold. Okay, well,
It is Okinawa cold.
okay. Earlier,
Below
it
75
was
degrees,
actually
it's cold.
Earlier it was cold. It's in fact warmer now at 11 p.m.
It is actually. It did warm up. It's 74 right now, but it was 68.
Oh, that's funny. That's
And
funny.
I was in jeans. We're talking about homeschool today.
And I will say, I actually do, in fact, have a connection to private school since that's what Zoe's doing this year because our
Perfect.
our middle school and our high school districts are really, really, really not good. Our elementary is actually fantastic, but our middle school and our high school are really not good. So, but they're using homeschool curriculum, so it just goes right along the same lines of
Or are they using a Becca?
they are.
Our friends love Abeka for math,
I
and
love
I would do it if it
Abeka
wasn't so
for math.
expensive.
You use
I love
Abeka
Abeka for math.
Yeah,
We use Abeka for math. I love it for math. It is just an intense curriculum.
it is.
It's
Well,
intense.
since it's intense, let's discuss why we homeschooled. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay,
I was like, Amelia's kind of like the expert of the three of us.
right.
So like she should kick it off. That's why I had her like transitioning us because
Yes, you dear.
she's got the longest stretch in knowledge.
I homeschool our kids for several reasons. One, I am not like anti-public school, or anti like private school or anything like that. But for my children, and for our lifestyle in the military, it is just like not the right choice for our family. Especially my son. He probably would not do very well in a public school setting. Personality, and then he definitely has some learning disabilities that would cause him to struggle immensely in a public school setting. And then also, I do not, in general, like the way public schooling is teaching kids. And this comes, like, I have an education degree, so don't come for me. This is my personal opinion, and I don't think anyone who sends their kids to public school or private school or any type of like normal school is like bad or worse than me, or I'm not better than them or anything like that. But I like to control the messages that my kids hear. And I just don't like the direction that public school is going, for me and for my family. Yeah, I don't like the government telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
As we literally have the government telling us what to do. It's very ironic.
I mean, they tell us what to do all the time, but
I know.
I can control
in this one
part.
thing. Yeah, it's actually there are a lot of military families who do homeschooling, and
Yes.
I think are
And
we getting
the
to that
big
later?
like
And for a variety of
overarching-
reasons, but
yeah, for a variety of reasons. But like, I would say like those are in no particular order, because the biggest reason that I wanted to homeschool is because I only get 18 years with the kids. And I actually, I like my kids. I like them a lot. I think they're pretty cool. My 10-year-old can drive me like up the wall because he's pretty much me. And parenting me is hard. But I like them. I want to be around them and spend time with them and do things with them. And the idea of sending them off to school for 6 or 8 hours a day, I don't know. I never wanted to do that. And then they're away from me, and that made me sad. So
yeah,
I wanted to keep them with me.
Yeah.
Even though they make me crazy, and sometimes I do want to put them on the bus and be like, bye.
Um,
Yeah.
I homeschooled only for 1 year, but that was not necessarily by the choice of like I refused to do it. It was not, in fact, a bad year. When we returned from Okinawa, we were moving. We found out Thanksgiving before we moved the following summer that we were going to New York City, and we did that in 22 during the middle. Well, I guess yeah, sort of the middle of some of the housing crisis, specifically rental housing crisis up in that area. Um, and part of the reason is we didn't know what the housing and the school situation was going to look like. We, in fact, rented a house without ever seeing it and had a really good realtor who helped us out. But we decided that since we were there for such a short period of time, it was easier to not limit our house options based off of the school districts since they went so fast. So through Amelia's help, we kind of got around the idea of doing homeschooling and so we went with it and it went well and I did and I really loved having the kids home. When we say that we don't like what the schools are teaching, it's not that we're not wanting to give them the knowledge to be able to like go out and deal with the world and what's presented, but like giving it to them in the lights that we feel are the appropriate lights for their age is different than what the world sees. And so I buckled down and decided that I would do that. My oldest was going into sixth grade and my youngest was going into first grade. So, as Amelia very much reminded me, the likelihood of me ruining my children by that point was not going to happen. So, I was like, at
Slim.
early enough, like Lexi could already read, so I didn't have to go through that struggle. And Zoe actually was able to do most of her stuff kind of solo. So it was a good year. We just didn't do it when we moved back here because both of my kids, in fact, do better in a social setting and without having a like strong co-op. I mean, we had our co-op in well CC, which we'll get to that in a minute, in New Jersey, but everybody was being so spread out that we couldn't meet up with people on a regular basis, and that was very hard on both my kids. They felt pretty
Isolated.
segregated from friends and making friends in general. So they've we have done different options here, but if I needed to go back and homeschool again, I'd happily do it.
Yeah, I mean, we met, we got some new neighbors when we were in Japan our first tour. So Emma was in third grade and Bro was in first, and they were going to school there on base. And like they liked it. But my friend was like, I was like, oh, I just don't think I'm like capable of homeschooling. And she's like, the same school system that pumped you out and gave you your education is not enough to educate your kids. Like, why do you have to have like more of an education? She's like, read The Well-Trained Mind. And it's
Yes.
by Susan Weisbauer.
Such a
And I was
good
like,
book.
it is. And I was like, okay. And so I read it and it like gets me going. And so I was like, okay. Plus, we were moving back to California. And I'd heard enough of what was being taught, even in elementary schools, that did not align with what we wanted our kids to know at that point. Um, and so we're like, all right, we're going to homeschool. So when we moved back, we started homeschooling with classical conversations. And I was like, well, maybe an unschooling method is kind of better. And basically, the kids are self-led learners, but that is not fit for my kids. They are not self-led learners. I learned. In fact, my two youngest were like, I have two older people and my parents to read for me. I don't, I don't have a need for this. So
Kind of
that was
sounds like
like,
Clara.
yeah, it was a difficult like journey at that point, but we were still committed to homeschooling. I took all of the curriculum for all four kids when we went back to Japan. Um, and we loved homeschooling. We loved classical conversations and the education, the ability for writing and like how it made our oldest such a great writer and a debater and all of the things. But moving there and getting set up, we decided to put them in the Dodea schools. And so we had a high schooler, a middle schooler, and two elementary. And when we left, and they enjoyed it, they thrived, they did really well. They weren't behind their peers, even though they didn't study in the same manner, which was pretty cool. But when we came back, we were only going to be here for 1 year before we retired to Arizona. And then plans changed. But while we were here for 1 year, we're like, we're not putting them in a public school system for just a year. Both younger girls wanted to do the pre-professional program at the dance studio, so they have to be homeschooled. We'll just homeschool all of them. And so we did that. And we're not doing like classical conversations anymore just because of the time with everything and how it lays out. But we really, I mean, we like it. Homeschooling is amazing. And I love being able to spend time with my kids. And I had a dental cleaning yesterday and the hygienist is like, oh, how many kids? Oh, that's right. I met your oldest on Tuesday when she came in, and she was saying this and that, and she's a really good girl. I was like, yeah, she's pretty awesome. And she's like, and then there was, so like people compliment my kids because they talk to adults like normal, and they have that socialization, which again we'll get into. But then I was telling her a story about Abby. She was at dance, and one of her friends was like, "Stay and watch me on Friday." And Abby was like, "No, I have things to do." She's like, "What things?" She's like, "Hang out with my family." And the hygienist is like, "Your teenagers still like to hang out with you?" I was like, "Yeah, they do. Like my kids love their family, their siblings." And I think that that's fostered in the fact that like, yeah, they spend every day doing schoolwork separately in the same place, and yeah, they fight like cats and dogs, but they thoroughly enjoy each other's company. And I don't think that that happens as much when your kids are out with their peers and being influenced by their peers. I would rather them being influenced by us and then interacting with their peers, because I don't want them to learn how to behave from kids their age. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a
Um,
roundabout, but
and
story there.
as Lacey kind of mentioned, all of us have done at some point for her and Amelia and I both, we've all done a program called Classical Conversations, which is a essentially a organized homeschool um, that helps you with
Co-op.
right, but it's
Mhm.
also like you go in for a day and they have school in an
Yeah.
in-person school for a day a week. Amelia knows a lot more about this, but for my single year of doing it so far, I highly recommend it for anybody who is getting started in this and isn't able to like get down the true organization that it needs that you kind of need for homeschooling and to be a teacher at home, like even if you're out of school.
Yeah, you get multiple, depending on how many kids you have, you get multiple examples, and you could like go class to class, but of how they kind of do their day
Hmm.
and how they do their class, and you learn a lot. But I am already doing the classical conversation curriculum with my 2-year-old because she really enjoys remembering, like memorizing songs.
Hmm.
Um, and she likes mostly science, body, which she couldn't care less about the rest of the science stuff. But I'm already doing that with her. I don't know if we'll have to put her in public school or private school, just because um, I don't know if I'll be able to keep up with her level of learning for a while there. But she's 2, so it's the basics, so I've got it. Um, but I thoroughly believe in that system of learning because it's classical education, which is what everyone was educated based off of forever.
Forever.
And we had some really smart founders of this nation that were taught in the same manner. So that's really what drew me to it. And then having experience with it, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So
I would say that there are some areas of a general classical education that are a little too outdated, but CC, as it's lovingly called, does a good job of kind of taking away those areas that are like a little outdated and bringing in the things that are very relevant to now. And yes, a lot of people are gonna be
yeah,
like, but that doesn't, why do I need to use this? Well, your child needs it when they start writing papers, which they don't
yeah.
often teach in school anymore, how to write a paper the way that we used to be taught. They're just like, here, go do this, but then don't grade them the same way and they don't break it down.
Like
Is it
I've read
daunting?
some,
Sure, but
yeah,
you really see the effects of it on the other side.
yeah. And I will say, like, I have seen senior papers written in college essays by public school kids who are very smart and intelligent children. And reading their paper, I'm just like, what are you saying? This doesn't sound intelligent. This is a little bit redundant. This is a little bit empty. And in comparison to even what we use as like samples in the higher levels of classical conversations. And so that also is kind of one of the things that I was like, yeah, I think that that's just the way that I want my kids to write. But I have my degree in English. So there's that.
There's that.
Yeah.
Amelia, how many different curriculums are you using right now? She's thinking, everybody. I wish you could see her thinking face. 4. Is
Or
that in for
between the two
both
kids.
between the two kids or each?
Between the two kids.
Between the two kids. So,
That's not bad.
yeah, like explain why. I mean, CC, we just said they had a curriculum. So explain why.
So, Classical Conversations is a program that goes from 4 years old all the way to high school. And there's different levels to it. So the first level is foundations, and that's when they're taught the foundations that they need as they get older Um, and then the next level that they hit when they're 9, they'll continue going to foundations. They'll also start going to essentials. So it's 9 or fourth grade, whatever you think your child's ready for. Like, for example, Clara will be 9 next year. She will not be doing essentials because she will not be ready. Um,
Hmm.
and then after they do 3 years of essentials, and they do essentials and foundations together, then they'll move into challenge, which is the middle school and high school curriculum, and that is a full curriculum. So CC as it stands alone, especially foundations, can be your whole curriculum. I have never used CC as my whole curriculum because you truly have to piece it all together. And I
Hmm.
don't like that. For me personally, that just doesn't work. CC, the
Well, and
foundation of CC is that they are learning songs in order
Yeah.
to learn information, right? So we don't necessarily, as tutors, I'm tutoring this year, I'm tutoring the master's class, and we don't necessarily spend our time going over like what all of these things mean and what they are and blah blah blah.
Real
We
quick.
are teaching them songs, like mnemonic devices to help them memorize facts. And it kind of at first seems like, why are they memorizing these facts if you're not delving deep into it? And then as your child approaches third, fourth, fifth grade, and you in your own curriculum, or you choose to pull from this curriculum and you start talking about um, the
those
history
facts.
sentence that they memorized this week or geography or whatever, it kind of starts to click. Math is the same all the time that they're in foundations, and they call it skip counting, and it's songs to memorize multiplication facts. My son did not put together that he knew his multiplication facts up to 15 until last year
Yeah.
when he started doing multiplication because he has been doing this since he was 5 years old.
Lexi she still does them
She still
during
sings
her
the
homework.
songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when she's doing her
Dude, my
homework,
high
she
schoolers were
counts them
doing
that
it.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
4, 8,
it's
12,
genius.
16,
Yeah,
20,
I
24.
do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. One of the classical like tenets is that they need to have a foundation of information to be able to pull from later. Like the timeline song in CC starts at creation and goes to present day. And it's
Well,
the timeline of the world. Well,
Approximately present day.
present
approximately
day.
present day.
Yeah.
Um, and your kids are talking about some pretty complex topics. Like if you break down and listen to the song, right?
Hmm.
Like what did I literally just taught this today. I really, truly, 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 truly should know what
Yeah.
I just
So
taught today, but I info dumped.
what she says when she's a tutor is that she is the teacher for that one day a week that I talked about earlier. We don't call them teachers, we call them tutors. So
Tutors, because I'm
that's
not
why she
teaching the
taught it
child because
today.
you're the teacher as the parent.
I
Mhm.
will say that it's an amazing program in that my kids are in high school and they haven't been doing CC in almost 5 years now, and they still remember the song.
Yeah.
And it still helps them when they're talking. They're like, "Oh, I learned about this," and blah blah blah, and they know a
Yeah.
little bit more, which
So
is
like,
pretty cool.
so
Yeah.
from that, you can pull those things out this week and say, like, okay, well, we're going to talk about Japan. We're going to talk about Byzantine for Basil II. We're going to talk about the Byzantine period. We're going to, whatever. Um, Kids learn a map, different plate at 4 to 5 points in geography each week. It goes with the cycle that you're doing. Um, and all of this accumulates, and they learn songs and mnemonic devices to remember it because at Challenge, they draw the world map from memory. And it's
Yeah.
insane to watch
It's
these
really
kids
cool.
draw the map
Yeah.
of the world with every country from memory. And it's just like, it's mind blowing. And it's
You see
so
what the mind is capable of at that
Yeah.
age,
Yes.
and it's really the greatest.
And it's
Yeah.
because they listened to these songs since they were 4 years old.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's wild. Okay, so circling back to what curriculum I use. All that to say, I do not use CC as my full curriculum. It's a lot for me personally. So I use CC for our pieces of our history and pieces of our science. I use The Good and the Beautiful for Clara for language arts and math. And then I use Story of the World for history predominantly for her. Um, and for her, that's, and then like a typing curriculum, but I don't count that. And then also an art curriculum. I also don't count that. And then for Josh, I use Abeka for math because he needs to be taught math by someone that is not me. So we do the video lessons on Abeka, and everyone is happy and no one cries.
Hey, there you go. Win-win.
I don't cry. He doesn't cry. It's great. And then he does essentials during the school year for language arts. and not during the school year because we don't ever not do school. So we do school all year. He'll do the good and the beautiful when we're not in the CC school year for language arts. And he uses the good and the beautiful for history, and then he'll like tag along story of the world with Clara. And then for science, I either use the good and the beautiful, or I'll pull from CC, or I'll use, why can I never remember the name of this? Apologia
Hmm.
is what I use for science for him. And then they also both have a Bible curriculum that we use.
Well, and we should mention here, tagging onto that, is that Classical Conversations is a
It is a
Christian
Christian curriculum, yes.
program. Yeah.
I predominantly use Christian curriculums. That is our faith and what we believe, and I want it to permeate my child's life. I do find some Christian curriculums to be like a lot, because I don't at any point want my kids to think that their faith is like farcical in any way. And I want them to take it seriously, and not like serious as in like man in robe, like doom and gloom serious, but I want them to take their faith seriously. And I find some of the Christian curriculums just make it like so much that I feel like personally my own children, this is not every child, this is not a criticism of that curriculum. I think it's really a beautiful curriculum and could work for some people. I think it would just become like a funny, ridiculous throwaway thing for them. So
Yeah.
I don't use some of those.
When looking at some of them, and this was one of the, like Wyatt for the most part was hands off when it came to curriculum. He was like, "This, I'm not going to be the one teaching them. Like you and Amelia and whoever else you talk to, like that's fine." But the one thing he did say was like, "But specifically with math, actually, that was the one thing that he didn't want. He didn't want it to become a throwaway
Yeah.
subject of disregard.
Yeah.
When it was
Which is why
a thing that wasn't necessary."
Yeah, which is why I like Abeka so much, because I feel like it really beautifully like includes our faith in everything. And especially in math. I felt like it was like so well done, and everything is included really beautifully. Like they were talking about shapes, and symmetry, and I mean the literal one sentence about it was how like God so perfectly created our world that these things are like designed to be perfect on both sides, and that was kind of it. And I thought that was like a really beautiful way to include our faith in math.
Yeah.
But
without going like
without being like, rah.
Yes, exactly. That's an excellent way of explaining that.
Yes.
I used CC, and then we did Saxon math, which is a very like the way that
Spiral method.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
how we grew up doing
It is how we grew up doing math.
And for my kids, I found that was actually the easiest way for them to both understand it too. They didn't really like they did okay in school. Now, Lexi was only in kindergarten before, and they, didn't delve into the craziness of all of the essentially bringing in Punnett squares to break down a three-digit number, but that went really well. And Zoe was entirely able to math completely on her own. The only thing is, because we were last minute, she ended up doing way too much review because I didn't give myself enough time to go through her math book and being like, okay, these chapters you can skip because it's like the first 15 chapters are review of like, third through fifth grade, and she didn't need all of that much. So that was kind of a negative on my own preparations. I hadn't been prepared to break that part down. So definitely, if you're looking into doing homeschool, if you're not already there, go through math specifically as the area that we came across this, and kind of prep that as to what they actually know, and pay attention to how many of the lessons do the exact same thing. Science, I did not do a strict, I don't mean this in a negative way, strict. I did not do a curriculum specifically. What I did with that is I used a couple of homeschool sources that had like sets of things that were fairly just basic. So one of them, it's peanut butter fish. Is that the name of them? I'm gonna have to look it up. I think it's peanut butter fish. She does little homeschool mini curriculum. So it's like a space and planet set, and all it is these. There's a paper for each planet and asteroids and meteors and whatever, and it gives you a lot of writing, but it's areas for them to research and look it up if they're old enough to do that, or you to read like a what is the solar system book and be able to fill it out. So it's like the temperatures, how long a day is, who discovered it, kind of this basic information. And then for the older ones, for Zoe, I gave her the periodic table, and I wanted her to figure out what, the main three elements that we knew made it up and write them down. So I kind of used that for science, and we bought some science kits. Again, this was because we were doing a single year, and at their ages, science is not one of the
Mm-hmm.
um, really structured areas of most curriculums for their ages. And as important as it is, and we all talk about it, it's one of those areas that homeschool curriculums just don't have a whole lot because it can be fun. You can do it, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
have like a here's an order of what you need to be teaching them.
So you get
So
into the older grades.
yes,
Yeah.
that's much older. So you kind of have to figure out, okay, what would they talk about and how can we make it fun? And for Lexi, for language arts, I used a lot of teacher pay teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that worked really well because it is teachers who have their own supplemental papers and extra worksheets for their classrooms. Um, and I could get, and the main reason I did that is when she left kindergarten, her kindergarten teachers actually put together an entire book that was broken down into 3 or 4 pages per day in section for them to do for the whole summer between kindergarten and first grade. And they bound it and sent it home with each one of the kids. And she loved doing that. She had a blast doing them every day. She had to do it before any screen time, and she was happy to do it. So I went through and found something similar for her age range for first and second graders combined. And but we use a lot of teachers pay teachers for different things. And I probably am going to try to figure out how to bring IEW into Lexi's life when the time comes because
I love
Oh,
IEW.
it's such a phenomenal program.
it's
I love it
so
so much.
good. It's
It's
Well,
so
and they
so
good.
good.
also have the Fix It grammar,
Mm-hmm.
and oh my gosh, it teaches your kids the sentence structure, like Amelia was saying, and then how to and then it teaches them how to write a paper. And it's not like, okay, you're in sixth grade, you have to go write a paper on this topic, and they've never been taught. Like IEW, quick little tangent, they take a paper that has been written and then you break it apart and it teaches you how to take notes, and then you tell the story from the notes, and then you write it in your own paper, and then you rewrite the paper that you've just read, but not exactly, like not plagiarizing, but just like same information. And I literally think that's why my oldest is, and my oldest two even, are phenomenal writers, in their final years of high school and college. So
Yeah.
final years of high school, starting college, but
Zoe had started taking notes in fifth grade in Okinawa, and that was the first time that he told them to do it. And she actually, that brought tears for her because she didn't understand how to take notes, just hadn't clicked with her. Um, but then going to that level of breaking that down, her papers, yeah, there was a bit of a struggle of her writing, but it I've seen a big difference in the way that she writes her papers now that she's back in a school setting for sure. So I highly recommend just that part. And you can get that even outside of CC.
yeah,
You don't have to be in CC to do it. It's just that's what CC uses, but it's IEW and it's awesome.
It's
that's what we're
awesome.
using for my middle schooler.
Yeah.
Like I have a hodgepodge of curriculum right now because I have so many different levels and things going on. And because we're in California, we have charter schools and they allow you to homeschool, but you go through the state. So you don't have to like go through the state for anything for accreditation for their diplomas. Like it's through the state. So they kind of like have some say you can't do Christian curriculum like with your funds, but they give you a certain amount of money per student. You can use those funds for their curriculum, for their extracurricular activities, and a bunch of things, which helps with dance. Because my girls dance all the time.
All the time.
Anyway, because they dance all the time, Abby's in high school. She's a freshman. So all of her work is online.
Which is ridiculous. I
I know.
reject that reality.
Same.
I know. But all of her work is online. And so her math class is with an actual teacher that does the grading because I cannot. And then for her other three subjects that she needs, because she's doing dance as an elective and all of her dance stuff counts towards that, which 60 hours of dance a week or whatever it is, like that counts towards her education and history and things. But for the other three subjects, she's doing an online program that I'm the teacher and I go in and I grade her work and I look over it. So I'm still teaching her and I'm still like working with her, but it's lessons that she has to go through. I don't love it, but it works because of the time restrictions we have. My son is all online, but he's doing dual enrollment with college courses for some of his stuff. Um, and then my middle schooler, I have her doing math with someone that grades it as well. She's doing science. Like she just goes through and like does the lessons. It's a little bit easier. And then for English and history, it's all me. And again, we're using IEW and Fix It Grammar to like the two of them in conjunction with each other, and then Story of the World. And last year we did like the fourth Story of the World book of Modern Times, her and Abby together, because it was sixth and eighth grade, which was really nice to be able to do them together. And then, so this year we're doing ancient history because it's technically sixth grade. So we just did them out of order.
Yes.
But, and then they have like the different, like some people just read Story of the World or listen to like the CDs or whatever, however they have it. But we also do the companion book. So she's getting the worksheets, she's doing the tests, we do the review sheets so that we can keep up and make sure that she's like retaining it. But, and then my very oldest is in college and I don't have to homeschool her anymore and she loves it.
Ta-da!
She loves learning. And I think that that's one of the greatest things we've noticed with homeschoolers, and like colleges notice it with homeschoolers, is that they thoroughly enjoy learning. They're not burnt out from sitting in a classroom. There's busy work because we have a charter, but there's so much less busy work. Like Brody would come home from first grade and sit there for hours doing homework. Granted, he would just do it slowly because he's a little bit, he does things kind of in a slower pace just because he does. However, the busy work was mind-boggling, mind-numbing, and just super, super frustrating. So I'm really thankful that my kids still enjoy learning. Like even Brody, he'll sit there all day and he'll be learning and he'll do his schoolwork, but then he'll go and he'll listen to like educational videos when he's done, or news or whatever, just because he does love to learn. And I think that, that's a really great habit. So that's the curriculum we use, and that's why. And, not that public school is bad, but I think that public school, because the government controls it, has gone downhill. And that's my personal views on that.
Yeah.
I'm not judging anyone for putting their kids in public school, because sometimes it happens or you just don't know what you're capable of. But,
Well, I come across a lot of people that are like, I just couldn't. But have you tried?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
But that's the same thing. Like people say that with,
I could.
a bunch of kids, right? Like I have almost 6 kids and they're like, I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do it. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know that because you didn't keep going, and that's okay. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to. And everybody knows everybody knows their limitations, but sometimes we put limitations on ourselves.
Well, and I very much remember telling my mom when Zoe was about 2 and I was starting, to show her numbers and letters and going through stuff. And at that point, I was like, I cannot homeschool this child, because in that case, she was me, and that we were just like head to head. But it
Oil
was
and
one
water.
of those things that I did recognize even then. It was like, or at least I cannot homeschool her until she knows how to read, because there was that level. One, she was my first child, right? Like I also did not know
Well,
all of
both
the
of my
things.
children came to homeschooling reading.
See,
Right.
Emma was in
And there,
preschool and I did like little
Not
books with
teach them
her,
to
and
read.
I taught her and Brody to read before kindergarten, just by doing like phonics and easy things. Like it
well,
wasn't very serious,
I
but
tried. That's what I was trying
it's
to do with
different
Zoe,
kids.
though.
Yeah.
And
It's different
But it's
kids.
different kids,
Yeah.
and that's like a big thing too. You have to recognize like what your kids need.
Yeah.
So
all of our kids, I mean, obviously Lacey's talking about that with some, but both Amelia and mine, our kids all went to like preschool or
Japanese preschool for the
Japanese
win.
preschool. Yeah, where I mean, Lexi was speaking her colors in Japanese and like and reading. So there was a little bit of established learning there, and we knew how they learned, sort of, or got a good idea of how they did not learn, um, before starting that. So we not none of us completely started from scratch, at least with not even a single child. Like Lacey still had, her oldest had a little bit of preschooling in there for sure, and then some
yeah,
younger.
with me though, I did the preschool and then we sent her to kindergarten, but she
Right.
was reading. And then Brody, like but my other two had no desire to learn to read and like fought it. So by
Well,
the time they went into elementary school, then it was like, oh, I guess I do need this. Oh yeah, I know how.
yeah. But I mean, even not just reading though. Yeah, but that too. But
Sorry, Brittany.
other
How
subjects were in
Abby
there.
is that?
I know.
Hmm. Yeah.
All of this
It's just
kind of comes back around to the hardest part of homeschooling can be the relationship of personalities in your family, and
yeah.
not always the subject. It can just be the clashing of that. And
Will.
That's
sometimes,
why I don't teach my child math.
right, and I was
Yeah.
going to say, sometimes it comes down to the subject specifically. It may be that you get along just fine in these other ones, but there may be one or two
Yep.
subjects, and you just have to learn
Right.
to give in to something else to make it happen. Amelia with
Oh yeah.
math, me with Zoe was happy to go do math on her own. Um, but there were certainly some aspects that, like reading, teaching them to read, I realized I needed to be hands off on that one. They were going to have to learn from somebody else, and then they could come back and I could do the other things with them.
Yeah.
Lacey, was there an
Oh
area
yeah.
that they
Math.
math?
Emma and I fought like cats and dogs every day, and like I could not teach that girl math.
Yeah.
Like it was like literally crying to my husband so much every day and like
It's
fighting because she is a very strong-willed, fiery child, which serves her well in many capacities. But teaching her math was just hell. So
Isn't it
we
interesting
we
that math can
started to
be so
change.
difficult?
Well, I hate math, and I'm not allowed to help them with math once they hit fifth grade
No way.
because
You're an
I
English
freaking
you're
hate
an
it.
English
I
major and you hate math? That's unheard of. Never heard of that one
it's
before.
it's
right.
literally the dumbest, worst thing ever. And Jeremy will be like, blah 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 numbers, and I'm like, uh-huh, five.
Shh.
He's like, yeah, wrong. I'm like, well, I don't care. You're the numbers man.
We're
You
finally in
do
like
that.
the hard part of CC math. And okay, for everyone that doesn't know, this is singing songs. I have to literally solve nothing.
Nothing.
I have to sing songs that are
Just skip
pre-written
counting.
for skip
Yeah.
counting. We
To
finally started
to the
today. This
rhythms
week
of
is
songs
skip
you already
counting.
know.
The rhythms and songs.
Yes.
No, this is skip counting the squares. Okay, I am so
Mm,
bad at math and numbers. I could not get this song right. And I'm
hmm.
supposed to teach other people's children that. But thankfully, I have the masters. It's one of the highest level of CC kids, of foundations kids. And I was like, today you're going to be the teachers and you're going to sing the song. Aha, teacher
Nice.
hat.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
that's the way
So
to do it.
No,
I
oh,
do
I
not teach
freaking
Josh
hate
math.
it so much.
Hate it.
On
And not
the other
because
side, what are our
it's
best
not because
parts?
I'm bad at
Oh
math.
yeah.
I'm not bad at math. I took like very high level math in college.
But
I don't understand what he doesn't understand,
yeah,
and it fills me with rage.
yes.
Yeah.
That
No,
is
Josh, no.
It's just
Some,
because you're teaching. Just like I told you that you'd fall flat on your face if you did that thing, and then
yes.
you fell flat on your face. So I told you. And they're like, no, you didn't. It's like, okay, well,
Okay, well.
Godspeed. No, the best the best thing about homeschooling
You know what?
is literally it may like you get so much time with your
Yes,
kids and
yes.
being able like to travel to go on field trips like
yes,
vacation at weird off seasons so that you miss crowds and you can make every opportunity like an educational experience like even Disneyland you
yes,
could make that into a educational experience so
Yeah.
I think it's just looking for opportunities like that and having the ability to be with your kids so much because they do grow up within the blink of an eye. I'll have you know, I have a 19-year-old and it's sick and ridiculous because it was just like yesterday we brought her home from the hospital.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
there you go. That's why we
no,
started
y'all
over
are the
again.
ones that are letting your kids grow up over there, so
Yeah,
Hello,
as you
you
say
have
it, Josh and Claire are giant.
yeah,
no, they're not.
So
yes, they are. I'm sorry. The
they're
pictures
huge.
that popped up on my memories of Clara and her little costume and Lexi, I was like, oh, she's changed a whole
No, she's not. She's a
lot.
tiny
She
little
looks like
baby.
a
No worries.
grown-up
I'll
lady.
No,
show
she
you the
doesn't.
reminder picture. You just
La
wait.
la 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 la.
That's what you think. No. Some of our, like, the bigger myths, and they're not entirely myths, I will point this out when it comes to socialization, is that all homeschool kids are, like, weird to be around, especially even as they grow up as adults. Um, And sure, there are some weird,
Or
but there are most definitely some weird kids in public schools. People like,
yes,
we're not going that
but
way. But it
they
is
don't need, I was just going to say, they don't need the public school setting to socialize. Like,
right.
that's the biggest myth.
Yeah, the however, you do have to search out your co-ops, right? Like
Yeah.
homeschool
You have
doesn't
to
have it
give them
built in.
opportunities.
Yeah, and that was the struggle that we had in New Jersey, like I mentioned earlier. Like it really is a myth. Like if you can sure set your children up for the failure of not being able to socialize simply by not letting them socialize. But if you have co-ops for help, what are you barking at? Oh, she's barking at toys. Sorry. Um, sorry. Yeah, Mi's trying to get a toy. I'm getting
If you
frustrated.
keep them home and
Thank
isolated
you.
and you don't give them opportunities to go out and meet new people and interact with the world, they are going to be weird. They are going to be awkward. But if you are a person that goes out and you talk to people in line at the grocery store, or you go to church or the gym or any activity and you talk to people, that's how your kids learn how to interact with the world. So like if you sit there and you're on your phone when you're out in public and you don't interact with people, that's what your kids are going to learn to do. So the public school setting, like, they're in class all day, they have to sit there and raise their hands, like they can't talk to their peers freely. So that's not really giving them the opportunity to socialize. They're given like little snippets.
And
So
similarly, the myth that they can't be in organized sports and stuff. There are
yeah.
schools that open up their organized sports to homeschooling kids because they
Hmm.
may be too small. You know, if you're in a smaller area, go find a private school. Like here in Maryland, all homeschools have to go through, like homeschool families have to actually be associated with um, a school, an established organized school, and they have to sit down. I think it's quarterly, but our school for my middle schooler is small. She has less than 20 kids in her class. That was not necessarily intentional, but that's just the way that it works. And so, because
That's
of,
small.
yeah,
Wow. Sorry.
now that last year she had 25 kids, um, but this is the year that they tend to flux quite a bit, apparently, anyway, so it's pretty normal in this school.
Hmm.
They'll have a bigger influx next year when they go into high
I
school.
just I just think that 20 kids in a class is crazy because that's what it was where I grew up.
Mm.
And that felt like a normal sized class.
Like in a
But that's
grade or in a
no, that's her
class?
grade. That's her grade. Like her
I
entire
Oh,
had
okay.
grade is
I
that
had
many
20.
kids.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I had 20 kids, 20 to 30 kids in my grade, but only like 5 to 10 in a class.
No, she goes everywhere with her entire grade. They do change classes, but they don't switch up the kids in, like they don't integrate with any of
Hmm.
the other grades in middle school. Um, but because they don't have as many, you can sort of choose the school as a homeschooling parent. You can choose the school that you are attached to be who's your monitoring um, body. And if you are with them, they also are open to your children doing their extracurriculars. So their organized sports, choir, band, um, STEM club, the robotics club, who they just won third place in nationals down in Kentucky. Congratulations to them. Um, so, it's not as isolated. You can make it isolated, but it is not as isolated as a lot of people think it is. And they do this in Okinawa. If you're homeschooling, but there's a subject or certain um, extra classes, electives that your local school offers, and they allow it, you can put your child in that school for just those couple of classes. So I had a friend who was homeschooling her oldest our last year in Okinawa, and he went um, to the high school for
Yes.
study prep and history. And so
Yes, it's
he,
only high school though.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we had
not
a
all of
dancer
them,
that did that.
but
Yeah.
you
Stop,
can
stop,
go to those
stop.
schools for extracurriculars, or you can go for those subjects that you just have to be hands off. If you can't handle pre-calc, then find the school that can do that for you. So, those are some of the myths that we like to try to break down a little bit for you.
Hmm.
Um, had I been more organized and figured that out, we probably would have continued to do it. But that first year, returning from Okinawa, nobody is organized the first year that you're
Yeah,
coming back from
Yeah, but
Okinawa.
nobody's organized the
I
first year of homeschooling, no matter what.
well, I
You
had
have
already
to move
homeschooled.
on top of it,
Right.
and it's crazy. Like,
I had
it's just
homeschooled
wild.
previously, and I still felt like a fire hydrant in my face the whole year last
Yes.
year
Yeah.
when we got back. Like,
Yeah.
it's just that's a PCS move and what it does to you.
Yes.
But also, then piling on your very first year ever doing it, I could totally understand why it was difficult.
It was
Like,
tough.
100%.
I had to switch curriculums and charters last year because the one I was going to go with misrepresented how they do things, which really
Oh, that's
that's
irritating.
something else. But
For
oh,
sure.
I was so mad. They didn't tell. They're like, you can figure this out after you sign up. I'm like, okay, I'm signed up. This is what I want. Yeah, you have to come 3 days a week. I'm like, I'm not driving up here 3 days a week for in person for two of my kids. And not only that, it was like remedial for all the other kids that were in there. They had like failed out of public school or something. So they were not like serious about their education. I'm like, this is not what homeschooling, like, this is not the program I wanted. Oops. So we switched and it was fine, but it was like because of that switch, it was a little catch up. So you do have to have like organization, not just like physical and tangible organization of where you keep things and how you do it, but you also have to be organized in like lesson planning. Like I literally have a lesson plan to sit there with my middle schooler so that I know, all right, this week we're covering this day. This is what we're doing on this topic. And then I have to do the same thing for grading, Abby's freshman, the 3 classes, which one of them is Spanish. Thank goodness they give me the answers because I'm rusty. Yes.
Send it to Sam, he'll grade it.
But you right. But it has like the answers of what it expects and it has a rubric. So like I do like how easy it is for that curriculum and like the website that we use, but you do have to have some level of organization, and that is where I did fail initially because I was like, oh, classical conversations, it's just all memory work. Like I eventually like made my own review sheets, and it was my laminated maps and things for them to trace and work on and year after year. So you do have to have a certain level of organization to work. Yeah.
Not hoarding curriculum, malarkey.
Oh.
I just read that
Amelia.
part.
Amelia hoards curriculum. I got in massive trouble for that. But there are so many elements of homeschooling that it's such a wonderful thing.
Yes, you have to hoard curriculum.
Your face.
I put that one in there
I hoard
specifically for you.
absolutely nothing, and I do not believe in hoarding. Lacey made me a sign that says, it's okay, throw it away, because it is okay to throw it away. You can throw everything away. I attach sentiment to nothing.
Except
You will pry my curriculum out of my cold, dead fingers.
She's like, I'll use this in 5 years. I need it now. Oh, they're discontinuing this. I have to buy it.
I do. It's so pretty. And it looks so nice sitting on my shelf.
I have audiobook trophies. She has curriculum trophies.
I do. I have so many trophies, and we use them sometimes.
Some
But then I forget that they
for
exist.
Like one thing. Oh, hey, I have a book that correlates with this minor subject. I'm going to pull it out.
Yes, but I'll forget that they exist, and then I'll go organize something, and I find it, and I'm like, I'm a genius. Past me is so smart.
I actually had boxes and boxes and boxes of curriculum, and I still have all of our CC like challenge books.
Oh, I kept all of ours
in a bank box because, like, well, one, the cartography book, the little novels, and the science, and like they're expensive, and I'm probably going to do it again because we started over. Yeah. But like I have a hard time letting go of books in general, but like curriculum, it's just it's special because they're so unique. But yeah, I would say homeschooling is such an amazing gift. It's super hard, it's super challenging, but it's the most rewarding thing as a parent to see your kids learning and watch them and knowing that like you take ownership of that. So in this light, and that we're doing homeschooling today, we're going to do some random recommendations. Mine pertains to homeschooling, but not any curriculum specifically necessarily, but stock up your pantry the joke of second breakfast and that your homeschoolers are hobbits is a totally real thing. No matter what time they eat breakfast, first time they're going to want a second breakfast. But also have several stashes of hidden scotch tape, pencils, Sharpies, and dry erase markers. Like have them hidden throughout the house that you know where they are. And then also have one like little set of your very own hidden so that your children can't find them, because those are the things that I lose to this day. Even like sort of when they were in public school, but I had a bit more of a handle on it. But my kids don't use dry erase markers for anything. And yet they lose my dry erase marker that I use for teaching my middle schooler. And tape, I can never find tape. So,
Amen.
and Sharpies always go missing. I don't know what they use the Sharpies for. It's like Legos. They just disappear.
Yeah.
So,
I can
Sharpies, pencils, expo markers, and tape.
I would
Buy it.
add on to that glue. I use glue
Mm.
seldomly in my house because I hate it. It's messy, it's sticky. I don't like it. Don't like it. I hate it. And yet, we go through so much glue, and I don't know how. I have no idea how my kids go through
When you move,
Like
you're
glue
gonna
sticks
find things.
or bottles.
glue sticks and bottles and all the things. And I swear to you, every time I go to Daiso, I'm buying like 5 more glue sticks because
Yeah.
they're empty. They're not gone. They're
Oh,
empty. What are you gluing?
or they're eating them.
Mm.
I very seriously hope they're not eating.
Do you remember? Well, I love
remember
the
this. I remember people
Billy
eating them,
Madison,
though. Yeah.
but like you remember the kids that ate paste,
Uh-huh.
like in kindergarten.
Uh-huh.
I was like,
No.
why
Yeah.
are you eating? Why are you eating paste?
Well, Amelia, what's your random recommendation?
After homeschooling my kids for 6 years, and I have younger kids. I don't have high school kids, so I'm not there yet. Um, I can really confidently say that the most important thing is to just read to them.
Yeah.
Like everybody tells you that, and people don't believe me until they get into their like second year of homeschooling, and then they're like, "Yeah, so we just read a lot. I, that's all you need to do." And you also, when you homeschool, you have to take this like thought in your head that you're recreating school at home out of your head. You're not
Yes.
recreating school at home. You are homeschooling for your kids to not be in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole point. And like, I don't unschool or anything like that, but you're homeschooling so your kids can have a like more rich education. And one of the ways that's going to happen is just just read to them, read everything.
Yeah.
Your kid
Go to the
is
library.
interested in pumpkins because it's the fall. Go to the library, get 16 pumpkin books and read them. And that is the best thing you can do with your kids.
Yeah.
And also,
Yes.
first year of homeschooling sucks. It's awful.
It sucks.
Nothing good about it. Everything is bad. You feel like you're drowning. And then you circle around to year 2 and you're like, oh, I didn't screw you up.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're gonna be all right.
I feel that one strongly because
Yes.
those first few months I
It sucked.
was
It sucked.
it was bad. It was swimming with lead weights through quicksand. Um, my recommendation, similar to that, as part of the thing that makes you feel like you're swimming through the Sahara, is buying the curriculum and the cost of that, because we don't see the cost of public schools. We pay the cost of public schools. Everybody does in your taxes, but we don't see it. And so when you're buying curriculum, it can get really expensive really fast. And
Yeah.
all you see is that, and which is why Amelia hoards the things too, because she doesn't have to go back
Yeah.
and repay for them. But one of my recommendations is get on eBay, get on homeschool Facebook pages, get on all these things, because you can get a lot of these books, like just the big teaching manuals, for super cheap and sometimes just for free.
My computer has 1%. I love you both. It's about to die. I have
Okay.
absolutely no idea where the thing is.
Okay.
Charger, I don't know where it is.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay, love you back.
Love you back. But definitely get on and look for those books from people who are getting rid of them, who are aged out. All of their kids have aged out of first grade math or history or whatever. And then you can go buy the workbook brand new, but you might be able to get all these curriculum books for free and save literally hundreds of dollars. It's not going to be a cheap start. It's not super cheap,
Mm-mm.
but it doesn't
It's
have
like
to be
cloth
crazy
diapering.
expensive. Yes, it's like
Yeah.
cloth diapering.
But anyway, tangent. So, but yes, it's a big investment to start
Hmm.
with. Well, and if you do classical conversations, you're using the books over and over and
Over
over
and over
again.
and over. Yeah.
To go with like the free and the cost effective, we used so many parents have content on YouTube. Like get creative, but if you're not creative, like find someone on
Someone on
internet who
YouTube
is.
has
Yeah.
been creative. So yeah, just find somebody to ask questions and you'll be good to go. Thank you for listening today. Let us know if there's anything that we left out. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Virtual Compound Podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date and find additional content. We love you. Goodbye.
Bye.